My name is Ryan Fitzgerald, and I own 1-900 Ice Cream. This is my watch collection. I've had several small businesses. I've always been kind of a small business guy. I've detailed cars, I screen printed. I used to run an underground restaurant out of my apartment. And from running that restaurant out of my apartment, we have now found ourselves at my latest gig here, which is the ice cream company. Whether you're collecting cars or watches, there's always a taproot. There's always the first item that you get, that you lock into, that just kind of like hits you in your soul, and you just say, this is gonna be my thing, and you become a collector. So for me, my mom, she worked for the government, so she had to travel a lot. She would always bring me back a Swatch watch. So my collection really starts with a plastic watch, and the one that I said, wow, this is really gonna be my thing. Kind of falling apart. A lot of these Swatch watches, I used to have a really big collection of them. My cousin literally had duffel bags of these Swatch watches, but this was the first one. I remember her bringing this one back and being like, I wasn't into it. It didn't really connect with me. It was very complicated. It's got a chronograph, and if you look at the dial, there's a lot of artwork going on. It was impossible to read, but as I got older, this one really spoke to me because it has the date, it has a chronograph function. You know, I think it was just a nice, cheap gift. These were not expensive back in the day. They were maybe $60 back then. And she got it for me, but it was really my cousin's collection that I think solidified or made me realize that this would be something really cool. And he had automatics and Breitlings, he had Bulgari. So, you know, his collection was a real watch collection. Mine was a little baby watch collection. He was really the brother influence in my life, and really whatever he did, I would do. My mom got me that watch. He collected watches, so that was really the start of my collection. My cousin, Johnny, who really got me into collecting watches, his best friend, Fabrizio, roasts coffee in New York. He's Italian, so he comes from, obviously, original espresso culture. He has a cafe in New York. He was the one who really got me into coffee. And what I really liked about coffee was how technical it was. When you kind of get into the rabbit hole of coffee, it gets pretty nuts. But espresso machines themselves were really where I latched on, because these were the ones that I was looking at were old mechanical machines, and a lot of them came broken. I would buy them on eBay, so I would have to fix them. And I love fixing things. I love working with my hands and getting in there. This latest project is a La San Marco 3-group lever machine from the late 90s, 2000s. That was a full nut to bolt restoration. Everything came down, everything was taken apart. We ordered all new parts from Italy. I had the whole thing re-dipped in copper. It was originally chrome. You know, when you're building espresso machines, you love the coffee that comes with it. And they're fully mechanical. Like there's no pumps. And so that would be like an automatic watch. If you had, say, a quartz watch, which you got to keep time, quartz does it the best, not as sexy, but that would be like these super automatics that you might see in like a Starbucks. You press a button, espresso comes out. Ultimately, these are mechanical tools. These are tools that we've had for a very long time in society. Different brands, you've got La San Marco, you have Gaggia, you have La Pavoni. These are big brands in coffee, and in the same way you've got big brands in watches. I don't have an extensive watch collection. You know, this is an expensive hobby. But what I did is I brought what I think showcases my collection from that taproot watch to where we are today. And the next watch would be the one my dad gave me. So my mom gave my dad this watch. He wore this his entire career until he found a Cartier in a parking lot. My dad called Cartier, tried to look up the serial, tried to find the owner. He put ads up all over town. Nobody claimed this watch. After 6 months, he figured it's his at this point. So he took the Cartier and he gave me this. And I ended up with this right before I went to college. So kind of like a graduation gift. It's a quartz Omega DeVille two-tone dress watch. pretty thin. I wore it, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily my style of watch. After this, I started buying a bunch of Swatches. So I bought really cool ones that were all automatics or had interesting functions like this music one. They have some cool stopwatch features. But I went through a phase where I didn't really have a ton of money. I was running this underground restaurant, but I wanted to wear a new watch every time I did a dinner. And the easiest way to do that was with these $60 plastic Swatch watches. I do have to showcase this one. This is the 𝗏𝗏 Swatch. I can't put it on because the strap has broken, but it has two people having sex in a very interesting way. Very crazy for a Swatch watch because the size of this case, it's plastic, kind of feels like it was meant for like kids, and it's got 𝗏𝗏 on it, which is kind of wild. But about the TAG Heuer, when I was in grade school or maybe like right before high school, kids of my generation seem to have this tag. The tag F1 came in a bunch of different colors, black and red, green and cream. There was a yellow, this orange one. So just recently, I had somebody source these for me. Now, I didn't realize how small the case is on them. So when I got them, I was pretty disappointed because they looked very small on my wrist. But I thought it was kind of cool to get something that I couldn't afford back then. My parents weren't going to get me a tag. But I thought it was really neat when the kids in my grade had them, so I added it to my collection. So that's kind of like the phase before I had enough money to really spend. Graduated college, I don't know what happened. I just wanted to cook and entertain, so I got a lot of cookbooks and I got really into it. But the one thing that I was missing was having people eat the food. I figured if I invited a bunch of my friends over, we could have a bunch of booze, I could make as much food as I want and have a fantastic night. So that was kind of the start of this supper club or underground restaurant. I got an Instagram going, I started an email list, and I literally invited strangers into my apartment. I charged them $60 a head. I started with like 16 people and then slowly grew. Before I knew it, I had literally a restaurant in my apartment. At a certain point, I had enough dinner parties scheduled out to quit my day job. So I quit my day job and went full on with this underground restaurant. I would have phenomenal talent from all these great kitchens in Philly. During that time, they usually needed a dessert, so I would just whip up ice cream. I could do it the night before, freeze it overnight, and when we were ready to do dessert, I could just throw it on a plate. The ice cream got really good, and then I locked into it. I went down the rabbit hole, and I created a dairy lab in my apartment. I had these spinners, and I had cooling vessels, and really did it kind of a DIY dairy lab in my apartment. And I decided for Thanksgiving one time to make 150 pints of the best vanilla ice cream that I could possibly make. I sent it out to the email list for this supper club, and within like 2 minutes, I had sold out of all 150 pints. 2 days before Thanksgiving, everyone comes to the apartment, picks up their order. That's when I kind of got the idea that there might be some scalability here. That was kind of the start of 1-900 ice cream. From there, I bought real state-certified pasteurizing equipment, and I was in this place called Liberty Kitchen making pints of ice cream with a Carpigiani batch freezer. So I put a freezer there, I put a freezer at a place called Current, Herman's Coffee. I basically had 5 chest freezers throughout the city, and I would just make ice cream all week and load them up. People would select their pints, they would swipe their credit card, they would leave, and I would give $1 for every pint sold to the host location. And that's how I was able to kind of ad hoc start this ice cream company with no real brick and mortar, no retail, very organic, very bootstrapped. Obviously didn't raise any money for this. And one thing led to another. It blew up. And well, we went through the pandemic. the pandemic was interesting for us because I had already started shipping nationwide. So when the world shut down, we started shipping ice cream all across the US, like the day it shut down. And then people started leaving their leases and all of these retail spaces became vacant. So I would tell landlords, yo, I'll pay you $800 a month cash. Let me just pop up in your space for a few months. And we would throw chest freezers in there. We'd go to that location on Friday and we would have like 2.5 hour long lines. Ian, who's behind the camera, could attest to that. We captivated Philly. There was nothing else to do. People wanted a reason to leave their house, and so they would follow this ice cream company, which was us. And then I got my first retail location in Ardmore, got another 2, this one in Fishtown, and still shipping nationwide. So we've kind of become like a real ice cream company that has proprietary mix from a local grass-fed dairy. We make our own ice cream and we have our own scoop shops. All right, so we go to this oddball in the collection. I think maybe everybody who has a collection has like an oddball piece. I saw this on Instagram and it just struck me for whatever reason and I had to have it. So I tried to track it down on the internet, very difficult to find. One came up on eBay. I got it and didn't realize this is like a 52 millimeter watch, which is far too large for my wrist, and I couldn't wear it. A watch that I thought would be awesome shows up and it's not. I can't let it go because of how difficult it was to find. This is gonna go out to like real watch people and they're gonna think I'm an absolute nut. I think this watch is gonna pop. So it's gonna stay in my collection. I never wear it, I don't really care about it. I have another Seiko that I wear every day. So that's kind of my oddball piece. Now we become, I think, a certified watch collector because I get a Rolex. Prior to this, I did not like Rolex. It just seems so cliche. You know anything about me, I'm very unique. If you look at my shoes, they're pretty wild. But the 𝗙𝗲𝗄𝗃 came out, especially in 3 colorways. But I thought it was really cool because one, the seconds hand is a contrast color lightning bolt, totally not what Rolex does. And then also just the engineering history of it, anti-magnetic, not that we have to like really worry about that today, but I guess when they had reel-to-reel tapes and huge magnets, you needed protection against that. The history and the story of the 𝗙𝗲𝗄𝗃, plus just, if you look at that with their lineup, it just didn't make sense. I loved that. Could never afford it. And then the day came to close the supper club, 𝗏𝗏, and transition into ice cream full time. And there was like a few bucks in the account. So I wanted to kind of like commemorate and kind of crystallize what 𝗏𝗏 was. I purchased one box papers, took a Dremel, and I put in here 𝗏𝗏 9/24/19. Truth be told, I can't remember if that's the date I bought it or the date 𝗏𝗏 closed. They may be very close, but I did engrave it. I did it because I didn't think I was ever gonna sell it. But that has changed because I truly think this is gonna go through the roof one day. This used to be my daily driver, banged up, totally beat to shit. I lit it on fire one time. I gave it to you guys at Luxury Bazaar and you got it polished for me. It came back awesome. So now this is not a daily driver anymore because it looks pretty sweet. Again, another watch that I believe in a few years is gonna pop and everyone's gonna want it. I have it, and I think between this and the Seiko, I'm gonna make my whole collection here. This is a Seiko Rolling Blazers collaboration. Again, another watch that I saw on Instagram, but it came with this teal NATO. This is like one of my favorite colors. I saw this together and I thought that was just an awesome colorway. This black and white checker, this kind of panda themed dial, and this just looked really cool. A difficult spec to find. This release had a couple other colorways. Paid way too much, but a watch that I had to have. I don't know, I kind of felt weird having the Rolex, and then I had like another Rolex to be wearing a Seiko. Felt kind of like self-conscious about it, but then I started wearing it every day. I wore it with a NATO, and the NATO got really dirty. I work in ice cream, it's kind of a messy thing. I called Seiko to see if I get a backup. They do not have them. So I have parked that NATO. I bought a strap on Strap Code. It's kind of like the Rolex President bracelet. And I just think it is super sharp. It's like the perfect size. It can take a beating, tells great time, has a day and date on it. So this is a watch that I wear every single day. People who know watches They always point this one out, so I think that's kind of cool. Every collector has a couple things in common: an oddball piece, and a Seiko, and a Rolex. I think those are three things that we kind of all have in common. So, yeah, that's my Seiko. Well, I have a proclivity for a lot of things. When I tell people that my hobby is hobbies. I love cars. Cars are a little bit more expensive, although at this rate with watches, well, at least during the pandemic, they were almost like the exact same amount, some of these Rolexes. But I've always been a car guy, and lately I've been kind of collecting that late 80s, early 90s era, the cars that I grew up with. So I have a 1979 280 SL Euro 5 speed. I have an 89 325i BMW. I just sold a Porsche 911. Watches, cars, espresso machines, these are kind of really my kinks today. I would consolidate this entire box, except for my dad's watch, into an 𝗴𝗏𝗲𝗃. Those things are insane. I have this weird thing. I can't, for some reason, maybe it's like my dyslexia, I can't look at a dial like this that just has indices and no hours and be able to tell time as soon as somebody asks me. So what I love about that 𝗴𝗏𝗃, it tells you the hour, the second, and the minute on these rotating wheels. So you can look at it almost like a digital watch, but it's all mechanical. That one and like a Essence Type 5 or Type 3, one of the oil-filled ones. Being a business owner, you're probably not going to be super loaded until you sell, or you've been around for a really long time. And I haven't been around for a very long time, and I certainly haven't sold the business. So funds are tight, but you still want to play the game. In my opinion, $20,000 in vintage cars and watches buys you a ton of value. You know, Alex is who I deal with over at Luxury Bazaar. I wanted to get a you piece, and the first one I looked at was a 30 dial, mother of pearl Yachtmaster in gold like this. At the time, I couldn't afford it. And we tried to find another one, nothing really came along, and then one day this popped up. It was naked, no box, no papers, but it was really the right price. I don't think you can find a 40 millimeter sport watch, all gold, that looks like this for 20 grand. It delivers so much value. It can be sporty, it can be a you piece, it can be a dress up piece. Pretty awesome. The only thing I would have hoped is to get a full set, but I mean, for what I paid, this is just a keeper. In my car buying experience, I've gotten burned twice bad, and I don't have a lot of money to throw around, so that really stung. And I found people in my life after those blunders who I wish I had at the time I was buying it, because these are true experts and people that you can really trust, people that I've become friends with first, and then they've been able to advise me, especially in the Porsche scene. But the same thing is true in the watch world, and I think even more so because of how many fakes are out there, Frankenstein watches, service dials, and these brands go so deep with nuance. Whether you're rich or not, that money was really difficult to come by. Even if you won the lottery, okay? You probably had to play the lottery 1,000 times and you got really lucky. Can't do that again, likely. So you want to spend your money wisely. And I found Alex, and Alex has been just invaluable. I hit him up more than I probably should, or more than he likes, and I'm not a buyer. He's happy to do that, and these are kind of people that you want to find in your, no matter what you're collecting, to have in your corner, so that when you do fork over that money and you get what you're paying for, that it really is that thing and that you don't get burned. And we're lucky in Pennsylvania here to have Luxury Bazaar so close to us. I know they deal internationally, but it's pretty sweet to have that be a Pennsylvania company and us be a Pennsylvania company. I pine for the days where we had pagers and flip phones, and like things were just simpler, and you had to put a coin into a phone to call your parents or call them collect. Well, I did try and wear a pager for a long time. I wanted to disconnect. And there is a paging network. Doctors use pagers. And then I saw this. I didn't even know this existed. This is a Timex beeperware. and it's a pager watch, which probably back then was the coolest shit ever to have your pager on your wrist. I thought I could connect it, but the frequency that this runs off of is not supported by any carrier here in the States. So this watch is dead and really should be eliminated from my collection. Like I don't know if I got more money and got more successful that this case would double in size and that I would have RMs in here and really expensive watches. It's more about just like utility and practicality. Like I have the first watch, a dad watch, a significant dad watch. I got some fun watches. You know what? I've got something to commemorate. I closed 𝗏_𝗏. The Yachtmaster is a milestone in my business. I made a certain amount of money. I got one that I can wear to, wear out. That's nice. I got one that I can knock around, and it's about doing it without spending a ton of money. But if a watch guy came across it, they'd be like, all right, that's cool. It's intentional. There's nothing in this collection where I was like, oh shit, I got 40 grand to light on fire. Let me get a Panda Daytona. I don't know if you can get one for, I don't know. It's not collecting for the sake of turning cash into a watch. Pretty much everything in here has a story, wasn't a frivolous purchase, and I can look at it and it can mark a certain time in my life. I think that's important. I don't think that's to say that people who have collections that are 300 watches deep and maybe don't tell a story and really are just converting cash into watches, I don't think that's bad. You just won't find that here with me.